Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael E. Mahan, and I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
How are you?
I am doing fabulously well. I am getting really close to vacation time, and I am super excited.
Wait till you get close to retirement. You'll get even more excited.
I know. You tell me that all the time. When I get close to retirement, I think I am going to experience a profound existential crisis.
Okay.
Yes.
Will you enjoy that?
I doubt it.
Will anyone around you enjoy that?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think I am terrified.
Does your wife know about the benefits of divorce?
I think when we get to that point, she will be doing lots of research.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, good segue.
Yeah. See, I did that on purpose. I'm a professional.
You know. I know you're trying to keep me on track because I've asked you to keep me on track.
Yeah.
Both of us have extensive experience dealing with couples, and specifically, nobody comes in and says, things are so fantastic in our relationship. What we thought we needed was some psychotherapy.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I've never had that experience. Have you?
No, I was going to say something flippant about that, but I won't. I'll wait and see if it comes up in the
See if it comes up?
Yeah.
So what happens is that people always come...
I have had a number of people come in and said, I'm doing really well, but my wife's crazy as hell, and you need to talk to her.
Yes, exactly. But the point is that by the time they get to us, something's in crisis.
Yeah.
Something somewhere's in crisis. And oftentimes when you're talking about couples, what you get is this relationship is over and we're going to get divorced. But before we do that, we wanted to make sure we did everything. Right.
Even counseling didn't help us.
Even coming to see you.
Oh my God, yes.
And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to take that as an insult, even though it kind of feels like one.
Sort of sets you up for failure, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it's like you're really not good at what you do, but we didn't want to sign the papers until we tried at least this much. Yeah. But so they come in and they're talking about that the relationship is over and people are getting divorced. And a lot of times, you hear the standard big things. Oh, somebody's had an affair, or I don't like the way that my child is being parented, and that's abusive. But then most of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time, it's just irreconcilable differences. There's no definitive thing other than people say, I'm doing air quotes, the quote, we've grown apart.
Well, there are so many opportunities to engage this conversation. I mean, you talk about the divorce rates for people 55 and older are skyrocketing.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why is that happening now when it didn't happen? How could they stay together for 30 years and then now they're ready to get a divorce? The divorce rates for people who have been divorced before are skyrocketing.
Mm-hmm.
Much greater chance that you would divorce a second time if you have been divorced the first time.
That I kind of get.
Well, a lot of it's logical. I mean, you can look at the data, but when you start talking about divorce or marriage counseling, then I think you have to try to determine conceptually, why are we here? Are we doing divorce counseling or are we doing marriage counseling?
Right.
Are we doing relationship counseling?
I think that's a great point, but I actually want to answer your question about the over 50.
Okay.
I honestly, genuinely believe that the reason that those divorce rates are going up is because of the new perception of life expectancy. That people believe that I'm 50, I'm 52, I'm 55.
More years to go.
Yeah, and I don't want to spend it being miserable. I really believe that's why. I mean, before, you got to 50, you were thinking, I got maybe if I'm lucky, 7 or 10 years left. And so I'm just going to grind this out because what am I going to do?
I also think financial stability increases the likelihood of divorce.
Yeah. Right.
A lot of times when I was growing up, my friends' parents didn't get divorced in many situations where they would have if they could have or they should have, because they couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford 2 households. They couldn't afford to pay for 2 cars, 2 houses, 2 sets of children. And so they just stay together. They ride it out, and they make some kind of compromise so they could live together, but nobody was happy.
Right. So then to go back to your question of who you're working for,
Yeah.
So I say very specifically, I don't know how you would feel about this or how you typically handle this clinically, but so if somebody comes in the first time alone,
Yeah.
then I will always say to them, I will do whatever you want. But if we're going to do couples counseling, then I need permission from your significant other to continue to see you, or we need to start that as a joint effort. Because what I don't want is for them to be able to say, well, now you're on this other person's side. So we got to talk about that.
They're going to say that anyway if they need
Oh, no,
to.
I know.
Okay.
But I say that up front because that way at least there's the perception that I am putting out there that everything is fair.
Also some ethical responsibilities. If I see the two of you as a couple and you both have agreed to see me as a couple, then if you do go to divorce and one of you wants to subpoena me, there is no confidentiality, and they need to know that. Even if you were in my office by yourself this week to talk about what happened here,
right? That's
you
a great
need
point.
to know that somewhere down the road that could come out. I mean, I'm not going to rush to your spouse and say, "Hey, did you know this happened?" But I'm ethically obligated to make you aware that there's no confidentiality in a marital counseling situation.
Right. So do you feel like that you work for a person or the couple?
It depends on if I'm seeing them as an individual or if I'm seeing them as a couple.
Well, of course, if you see them as a couple, then you see your client as the couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so do I. And I'd say that openly.
But I will say to them, my job is not to save your marriage. My job is to help you find the right answer for both of you, which may be, the way I frame it is this way. If you come in and you're struggling and you're equivocating about whether or not to stay together as a couple, my goal is not to save this marriage as a construct. My job is to help each one of you get to the place where you're willing to take the risk to say, this is who I know myself to be. This is who I am. I'm this way.
Yes.
And then ask you, in all honesty, if this is who I am, do you still choose me?
Yeah.
Do you look at me and say, I want to be with that guy?
Yeah.
And if you don't, then where do we go from here?
Right. And I've heard you say that many times over the years, and I know that is foundationally, conceptually, where you go, where you are in therapy, just as a rule, regardless. Yeah. So I say to people when they come in that if you are here together and you're saying to me that you're here because you have thought about divorce, but you want to do everything you can beforehand, then I am going to assume that you've said to me that you would like the relationship to continue, and I'm going to treat the relationship as my client and do what I feel like is best for the relationship until you tell me that isn't what you want.
Well, and I would ask the question, have you thought about divorce? Are you considering divorce? And who's thinking about it?
Yeah.
And can you tell me why?
Right.
What's going on that's crossed the bridge that you're no longer willing to stay in this situation? Because part of what we have to figure out are, what are the patterns? What are the patterns with which you live your life? How you communicate with each other, how you handle money, how you handle sex, how you handle disciplining children or having children. Religion, church, do we go to church? Do we not go to church? One of us go, one of us doesn't. I mean, was one a Democrat and one a Republican? Where are the bones of contention that make you unhappy?
And what I think I see is that people get into those relationships because they're reliving those childhood scripts, and that over the course of the years, something has changed. Either my trauma has been resolved and now I don't need that script.
You're not the same person that she married.
Yeah, and when they say, we've grown apart, that's where it is now no longer are you satisfying whatever I got into the relationship for. That issue's been resolved and now I don't know you.
Right.
Or I don't need you.
No, I think that's absolutely on target.
Yeah, and then the question is, which goes back to what you said, which is, here, this is who I am.
Right.
See me genuinely and sincerely, and knowing that this is who I am, would you still want to be with me?
Right.
And if you do, then let's figure out what that looks like and stop just playing the script.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Everybody has a script, and as long as we're reading to the script, we're not growing or changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I may recite the script lines, expecting you to recite your lines and help us stay trapped. So part of the challenge is, can I learn to speak a new script?
Mm-hmm.
Am I open to that? Am I willing to try to do that?
Wow. You know what? I'm going to use that. I've never phrased it that way, but I like the way you just said that.
I've seen so many families where people have automatic lines
Mm-hmm.
that they say so consistently that even when they're not in the room,
Mm-hmm.
the other family members respond as if they had been there and said it.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody's trapped according to a script, like actors in a play.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you engage them and say, is it possible, could we have new lines for Dad today? Could we say something totally unexpected that
Mm-hmm.
Dad wouldn't say?
Mm-hmm.
And if Dad's here, I'm going to ask him, can you say this? Would you ever say this? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like, here, honey, take my car.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you'd do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, you know. Why?
Right.
And okay, if not that, then what are you
Right.
willing to? Here, let me do the dishes.
That's right.
Let me do the laundry. Would you consider cutting the grass? You know, I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that rocks the boat in
Mm-hmm.
terms of doing something new, where people have to think about and be reality based on what's going on
And
and how do we feel about that.
while we're having this conversation, I am actually thinking about, we just recently talked about adult attachments and how those form. Yeah. And we were talking about that sometimes people's attractometers are miscalibrated. And then it's about recalibrating those attractometers to find somebody different. And you have to do something different. And so a lot of this
Which could even be the same person. If we could change our behavior.
But I never thought of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you rehearse. I mean, you remember when you were in school and they were teaching you about the two-chair technique,
Mm-hmm.
where I sit in the chair and I turn and
Mm-hmm.
look at the empty chair,
Mm-hmm.
and I say, I don't like the way you blah, 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 blah. And then I get up and
Fritz
I move
Perls
to the other
Gestalt
chair
psychology.
and I respond.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just work through the dialogue. What if you got somebody to say something different?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes something they were comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with. If I'm like, okay, you know what? I can do this, and will I do this
Right.
for you?
But that's the whole
Yeah.
focus of the empty chair experiment. And so, my geeky
Yeah, go ahead.
Fritz Perls.
I'll stop you soon.
Fritz Perls Gestalt psychology. But that's the whole point of the exercise, is that when you recognize where the motivation for why I'm saying that in the first place comes from, that liberates me to say something.
And who am I talking to?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
because
Right.
I married you because I have
Right.
unfinished business with my mother.
Right.
And I need to establish myself with her in ways I never was able to when she was alive. And now you're in that role, and so I need you to give me my mom lines.
It's so cliche
It is.
that we say
marry our parents.
We marry our parents.
Yeah.
And when you go to grad school and people say, and you get, you hear this and everything, it is crazy how much of that is true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but our family dynamics. Talking about scripts for couples and parents.
But where
but the
do you think
whole
the script
family.
originates?
The whole family dynamic, like the alcoholic family.
Mm-hmm.
And you got all the roles, the character roles. If you have enough people, everybody gets assigned a role. And so somebody becomes the family clown, somebody becomes the family scapegoat, and if you don't have enough people, then the people that you do have multiple roles. And depending on the trigger that gets pulled, they give the line for the right role.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the beauty of doing counseling and going to counseling, is there's an opportunity to identify the patterns and the rhythms,
Mm-hmm.
and then to experiment with changing the script.
Mm-hmm.
And then seeing at the end of the day, has that been enough that I'm willing to keep running this race?
Right. And I think that it's really important, though, to point out that you can't change the script one time and think that things are changed forever.
No.
You have to do that consistently. So that takes a certain amount of introspection. So people can come to our offices and we can talk about changing the script. We can say, hey, here's a great experiment. Can you say something different than you would have normally said when Dad enters the room? And, somebody could say, yeah, sure, absolutely, I could do that. And they could do that one time. But then if that isn't followed through, if that isn't consistently reinforced, then people are going to regress
Well, it has to be
back to those
habituated.
patterns.
It has to be embraced, habituated, and real. If it's just an artificial script where you're not investing any of yourself in, I mean, there's some honesty that has to be there. And I'm willing to say I don't like watching these TV shows, but I like spending time with you.
Right.
So on Tuesday nights, you can pick the TV shows that we watch.
Right.
Or between 7 and 9.
Right.
And then I want to watch my stuff. Can we negotiate that out so that we're all sitting here and nobody's resentful, nobody's acting out, nobody's being a jerk? I mean, as an example. Or going out to dinner. You know, I remember who has the choice. You know, it's my turn to pick the restaurant, and we have a range of cost factors for a family, but the family can come up with 3 or 4 or 5 restaurants, and everybody ought to get a turn. It isn't always mom's choice. It isn't always dad's choice. It isn't always Billy's choice. And then the family learns to share and be honest and make commitments to each other.
And so I would say this, that I agree with you that there has to be honesty in that. There has to be some kind of sincerity associated with it, but it doesn't have to feel comfortable. And as a matter of fact, it will not feel comfortable.
There you go.
Right. I mean, you have to know going in, it's going to be uncomfortable
And initially,
to do
you're
this.
Say, I don't like it.
Right.
This isn't working.
Because it's breaking the old script.
Right, exactly.
And we have actually, in our family, the opposite. Nobody wants to pick the restaurant, so everybody will be like, oh, you know, I'll throw out 3 choices and you pick one, and everybody knows that if Dad is asked, Dad's going to say, well, let's go get breakfast, and nobody wants to do that. So then I get so frustrated because nobody wants to do it, and then I'm like, okay, well, let's go get breakfast, and they're like, well, we don't want to do that. I'm like, well, then, you know, that's what, if you leave it up to me, that's what I'm going to say. And so even when you know what the script is.
As a good therapist, you say, I respect your choice. Get in the car. We're going to
IHOP. Believe me, I have said that.
I know you have.
But they all know that I'm going to do that, that I will do that.
Multi-dimensional honesty. They're being dishonest when they say, oh, I don't want to choose.
Exactly.
Because they do want to choose. But what they're not being honest about is they want you to choose what they want you to choose, what you're supposed to know.
Exactly.
So if you're going to make them happy, if you're going to be the good dad, you're going to pick Red Robin. Because you know they all want to go there.
Exactly.
And you don't like Red Robin.
That's
and they know you don't like it. But
right.
they want you to pick it because then you'll be the good dad.
That's right.
And so that's a psychological pressure.
And when I first, I call it emotional manipulation. When I first got sober, that was exactly what happened. You know, my wife would say, hey, do you want to go to Steak and Shake or Taco Bell? And I'd be like, well, I want to go to Steak and Shake. She'd be like, oh.
I hate Steak and
I'd be like, what? Oh, I just thought maybe we could go to Steak and Shake. I'd be like, oh, baby, no problem. Yeah, let's go to Steak and Shake. I don't care. And then I got sober and I started thinking about, you know, this idea of self-respect and so, and she would do that and I'd say, well, you know, you have a good time at Steak and Shake. I'm going to be thinking about you at Taco Bell. And she'd get mad.
Yeah.
You know, and so one of the things that you have to think about if you're going to do this is recognize that this disequilibrium that you're throwing into the equation makes everybody feel uncomfortable.
Well, and now we're moving away from our conversation about your family.
Yeah.
But sometimes the thing that happens is like, well, if you chose Steak and Shake, I was going to have sex with you tonight.
No.
But you didn't choose Steak and Shake.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, oh, wait, I don't want to miss that opportunity. Too late.
That's right.
So you need to learn what I like, and you need to pick what I like. And then if you do, then I'll pay you back some dividends for what you like. So you get family manipulations that are adhering to the ritualized script. There you go.
The script that developed in childhood.
Yeah.
And if you're going to break out of that, everybody's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Nobody is going to be comfortable with being knocked out of homeostasis. And so
that's
then,
a definition of homeostasis.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so then the more pieces of the system that you can get who will at least initially give lip service to buying in, the better. Now, if you can't get other pieces of the system to buy in, so we started this conversation talking about divorce. If we're talking exclusively about a man and a wife, both individuals are going to be uncomfortable when we talk about changing up the script. Yeah. But a lot of times, even when we're talking about divorce, we're talking about a family system.
Right.
And so then
multi-generational.
Even perhaps.
Yeah.
And so everybody in all of those iterations is going to be uncomfortable. If you can get more people to buy into this change process, then it actually becomes more sustainable.
And that's the challenge. Can you get all those people in the room?
Yeah, right.
I remember years ago I had a family in the room, it's mom, dad, and 2 kids. And I asked some question about dad and dad's participation level, and everybody had an answer. Dad disagreed. Dad started to say something, and the oldest daughter just kind of gestured with her hand, and Dad shut up. And so I observed that happen 3 or 4 times, and finally I said, I need to talk about something that I'm seeing in the room. I said, every time you get ready to say something that's not in line with the script you've all agreed you're going to give me, your daughter raises her hand and you shut up. No, that doesn't happen. I said, well, okay, maybe I missed it. Maybe I misunderstood. If I think I see it again, could I point it out? And so we just do it that way, and I kept seeing it and pointing it out, and finally the family started pointing it out. Like, oh, look, Dad's doing it again.
Right.
So then we could get to the honesty of their communication and their dynamics, the power dynamics in the family. The girl was running the family.
And when they realize that...
Then they have an opportunity to do it differently.
But did they? So they did not think that was true.
No.
And did she think that was true?
The girl?
Yeah.
She never admitted it.
Okay.
No, they were all blaming the mom.
Yeah.
Mom was mean, and Dad was lovable, and Mom was mean, and Mom was in this situation, and I kept saying to Mom, I don't want you to respond to this. I want Dad to respond. In terms of dealing with the children, in terms of making a decision, whatever he does, then you need to stay out of it, because she had the reputation of being the heavy, and she was always shutting down everything. Nobody could have any fun. Nobody could do anything. It was always Mom. Mom was mean. So then what we found out was Dad was every bit in agreement with Mom, but he never got credit for it because he was happy old Dad, and the daughter was coordinating. She was like the concert master, and when we could point out those interactions, then the family had an opportunity to change.
Right. So the bottom line is you got to move the system out of equilibrium, and that's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. But so it doesn't matter whether you're talking about just a couple, a man and a woman, or whoever, just 2 people, or an entire system with multi-generations. Somebody has to be brave enough to try and move that system out of equilibrium, and probably the person who is most psychologically flexible has the greatest ability to do that.
They have the power.
Right.
But the thing is, people are invested in the script that they've habituated to. There's huge resistance to changing it, so they'll fight hard to have a blip and then go back. And go back and do what
even when we're just working with couples, just 2 people, they'll come in and they'll do great work in a week, and then they'll go home and they'll have a fight, and when they come back, it's like nothing ever happened. Exactly. Right. And part of that is because there's unconscious pieces of them that are trying to destroy the progress that we're making. They want to fall back into the old habits of that homeostasis.
Yes.
So hopefully this was beneficial to people. As always, if you want to get a hold of us, you can get us through the psychwithmike.com podcast site. On the videos, there is an icon in the bottom right-hand corner that you can click and subscribe, and we would love for you to do that. You can leave us comments, or you can email us and give us direct feedback, whatever. We always love to hear from people that are listening to the show. The music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue, and as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.